how you can be pro-choice and Catholic, though.
We smell that. Smell that devil's lettuce.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit of devil's lettuce.
A little
going
bit of
on?
devil's lettuce going.
I'm pro-choice, meaning like there's an exception. Like if the woman's gonna die from giving birth or something extreme like that, I'm not like, oh.
Yeah, but that's not an abortion.
That's
So
medically necessary.
An entropic pregnancy would be a different category.
But then again, I also think that there's a lot of problems with like the foster care system, and so I don't know. I know. See, I see both sides as the problem.
May I speak to that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I gave a baby away. I'm actually in California visiting the child I gave away 3 years ago because I have a 13-year-old daughter. So obviously she was an old enough child to realize that I was pregnant whilst I was pregnant. And the thing that I didn't realize until I've had so many conversations, and you just...
Jivanik donated $200. It is a core tenet of Catholicism that you cannot be pro-abortion. In
I
fact,
know.
it is mandatory that you are excommunicated if you get one, knowing that the penalty is excommunication. GTFO.
Well, I personally wouldn't have an abortion because I wouldn't put myself in that situation to have a baby if I wasn't ready to have a baby and able to take care of a baby. But I think that there are certain circumstances, for example, we're not supposed to talk about it, but
Like in the circumstances of SA.
yes.
Okay, let me ask you a question. So this is, I hate doing this on behalf of big hat Catholics, but I'm going to do it anyway, okay? The Catholic dogma supports that life begins at conception. If you were to get SA'd horribly, and then you went home to your already existing child, and your already existing child, would that be justified?
No.
Why?
See, that's...
Hang on. Why?
Because the child, I don't necessarily believe... I don't know, you got me there, okay? I'll give you that to you.
That is a wildly different comparison.
Is it?
There's still, I
Why-
understand that there's still...
Let's find
According to
out.
the dogma,
Let's
he's-
find out if the logic is the same in both cases. So,
Well, okay.
hang on. Let
Oh,
me
go
ask.
ahead.
The,
Yeah,
let me
go
ask the
ahead.
question to you. Okay. Assume for a second you believed
Mm-hmm.
life began at conception. Okay. If you were SA'd, could you go home and could you one of your children who was already born?
Asking a woman to go through the trauma of giving birth to a baby that she was SA'd and going home and killing a child is a completely different topic.
Yeah, so anyway, so
It's
back
a
to my...
lot more nuanced
Before
than
we
that,
get to the
though.
obfuscation of nonsense, let's get into the actual question. Would you be justified if you believed life began at conception? This is your core belief. It begins at conception. Okay? If you were SA'd, could you go home and kill one of your children because of the trauma of the SA? Or would you be held responsible for that?
You legally be held responsible.
That's right.
yes.
Well, and morally held responsible.
Yes.
So, what is the distinction between that life and this life?
Again, asking a woman to carry a child to term with her SA'er's child to term is considerably different than her going home and killing a child that she has no previous trauma with.
Yeah, but
He's
if
talking
it's
about the
not
conception of
if
life
it's
of the
not
baby.
justified for you to kill life, exit the womb because it's life. This is your belief. Then how would it be justified for you to kill it in the womb if this is your belief?
Well, I don't believe in life at conception
I
personally,
understand,
but,
which is why I gave you the caveat. If you believe the X, if you believe that life begins at conception, what would be the distinction between it in the womb and exit the womb?
Again, the only thing that I would say is the trauma, because you don't have
Then you would
you don't prior trauma with that child
But
that you
then,
went home with.
then
If
wait
I
a
got
second.
SA'd and I
If
went
it
home to a
was based
child-
on trauma, then why couldn't you then do it based on the same trauma to somebody who was already born? That makes no sense.
because
If
it's
trauma
not
is the
comparing
justification
two.
for the killing of the life, then why couldn't you do it to somebody else?
Because that child isn't causing you trauma. The child that's already home is not causing you trauma.
But the
you're not
child-
gonna
Yeah,
you're
but-
not gonna go through going home to a child after you got SA'd is
You
not
go
gonna cause
home-
you trauma. Giving birth
Oh.
to someone
So you
after
go
you've been
home and your
SA'd
child looks just like your SA'er. Even though they weren't born with them, they look just like him and it's causing you trauma. Are you justified in taking that child's life?
No.
Why?
because I believe that that is a human life. I don't believe.
But if you
at conception.
believed that it was at conception a human life,
Yeah, I understand
then
why
how
people,
could you reconcile these two positions?
I understand why people are pro-life. However, I disagree on concept.
Yeah,
what
okay, I
conception
get
is.
it. I'm not talking about your belief. I'm saying a Catholic
Yeah.
believes life begins at conception. That is a human life at conception. If you believe it's a human life at conception, how can you make an exception for SA? If you were SA'd and had trauma from that, you could not then go home to somebody who was not in your womb. What would be the distinction there?
I just think it's a more nuanced topic.
Yeah, I know,
than
but
that.
can you answer to my question? And then we'll get into your worldview.
Okay, let me put myself. So I'm a Catholic. I obviously wouldn't get a baby because
Right.
it's against your belief system.
Right. It wouldn't make any sense.
You know?
It wouldn't make any sense to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From your belief system. I
Right.
understand that. I do think it is a different conversation. It's kind of comparing apples to
No,
oranges
it's not,
a little
and I'll
bit.
tell you why.
In my
Even from your worldview,
opinion.
it's not comparing apples to apples or apples to oranges. It would be comparing apples to apples. The idea here is trauma is the justification for the elimination of the pregnancy.
right.
You give it a further justification, and you say, because it's also not a life. Okay, I can concede that you believe that. From the Catholic belief, though, they're saying the only justification can be trauma because they believe at conception this is a human life. So trauma is our only justification for the elimination of the life. So then why couldn't you do that outside of the womb? That makes no sense to me.
It's just different. It's
I have a
different
question that
circumstance.
might actually change my view. Okay. Does a fetus, like, no matter how
Fetus
early on-
means baby.
Yeah. Well, like when it's in the womb, you know, no matter how long, like, does the baby feel?
You're talking about the
abortion?
gestation of
Yeah.
it?
Like, do they feel
It's
it in
actually
there,
one of
or
the
like
hardest
understand?
things I've ever had to go through and like witness. I didn't have an abortion. I said that really wrong. But when I was your age, I had the same position as you. Like, of course, I'm conservative, so therefore I'm like somewhat libertarian, and therefore I believe the government should not be involved in what I do with myself or my body. Right? It's like actually a really normal line to come through.
Yeah.
But yes, that is why heartbeat bills are wildly important in states all across the nation. They're being passed because at a heartbeat, that is when the baby can feel pain. It's when they have a breathing heartbeat. I'm not entirely sure if they can feel it before the 6 weeks, but I am fully aware that 5.5 to 6 weeks
If it was
after, yes.
proven that they can feel it before the 6 weeks, then I
Let
would
us
be
assume for
against-
a second that they couldn't feel shit, and that you had a quadriplegic who couldn't feel shit.
Grid 1 Motorsports donated $200.01. Feminists always use the talking point, ignoring the fact that over 2 out of 3 pregnancies that result of SA are carried to birth. Less than 0.01% of 0.1% cases is the worst justification for murder.
Yeah, perhaps.
Thank you, Grid One.
Perhaps Grid
He's a
One.
brave and a decent man. He's a pioneer.
A little pushback to you is that regardless of how few there are, that is the justification which needs to be contended with. So even in this case, when you say if it couldn't feel pain before X day, what if the kid who you then went home and killed based upon the trauma that you received external to the kid also couldn't feel pain for some reason? Maybe they had no nerve endings.
Or maybe someone's in a coma.
Yeah, something like this.
I just feel like it's different since that, like, you know, they already have like life experience.
Why would wait a second. Why would that be the determiner? Why would it make life more valuable because you've had more time to experience it?
I don't know. I really don't know. I did see. This is what I'm saying. Like, I'm kind of on the fence with it.
Well, how do we get you off the fence? What do I need to do to get you off the fence and on this side?
Can I try something?
Yeah.
Something that really changed my mind on this was a lot of black men will say that they feel the police are racist towards them, or they feel the police are biased against them, and when you actually dig into the data, like if you go to the Washington Post and you dig into the data, we as a country feel that way. And I think that's a general sentiment that even left, right, or center, you have felt that way in general based on the propaganda or the media that you consume. At the end of the day, if you go and you look at the statistics of unarmed black men who are shot by the police, in, let's see, 2023, it was 10. And yet that warrants an entire health crisis, according to Duke University. And so sometimes there are things that we may not feel, or we as a society go, oh, I really feel that way, or I understand it that way. But then you look at the data and it is not that way. And for me, that was how the pro-abortion to pro-life movement was for me, where I was just like, you know what? At a certain point, it does defy the way you feel. It is just logic. Sorry if I didn't speak close enough to the mic on that.
I have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
Okay.
She's talking about based on emotion.
Yeah. Did I not make that? Was that not clear?
Yeah, I think. Are you saying that because people have emotional responses based on societal programming? Or is that what?
Ulysses the
Okay.
Pagan
Yeah.
donated $200. To the pro-choice advocates on the panel, how do you say with one side of your mouth woman's rights, but you're taking that right away from the female within womb?
Saying like
I need to
how
do
you
a little
protect your
shifting.
rights if
Thank you,
you're killing
Pagan.
a
Appreciate it.
potential
I need to do a little
abortion.
shifting here when it comes to the seating. Is it possible for you to scoot in, but scoot into the table, scoot into the table? You guys are a little far away from the mics. Can I have you scoot your mic to the very edge of the table?
Yeah.
And
right
then
here.
tilt your mic down a little bit?
Like that.
Yeah, that's good.
Perfect.
I'm just trying to get things a little fixed here. Sorry, guys. We did some arrangement after the guns blazing feminist left crying. So,
Guns weren't blazing very well.
not really. Let me do a couple
They're a
chats
little
here.
waterlogged.
She came in eyes crying, not guns blazing.
A little waterlogged.
Nathaniel Cook, nope, Ryan, and some stroking out here. Municipalities, women have the right to sit at public parks alone on the bench, where men are banned from doing so. Women have rights that men do not, if we use that logic.
Right.
Is that actually the case, that men are banned?
That's not a
Listen,
right. That's
there's
I've not heard
there's
this.
laws that you can't shoot jackrabbits from trolley carts, dude. There's all sorts of bizarre laws.